Today we're going to be going over customer health with DBT, LiveRamp data journey, and just how we went from our old GCP environment and our way of creating views, scheduled queries, to using DBT to help us create models and a better workflow. So to start us off, my name's Kyle Salomon. I was born and raised in Phoenix, Arizona, where I still reside. And before LiveRamp, I was at Charles Schwab, where I was with tech support. Then I became a web developer, then eventually transitioning over to a business analyst, where I've been working in that field for about 5-6 years now. And now at LiveRamp, been here for 3 years at LiveRamp. And I currently lead our business analytics team as well as our data engineering teams.
Yep, and hello everyone, my name is Shivasai Bandla. Everyone calls me Shiva. I'm currently based out of Philadelphia, but I've lived all over the place from Florida to Lake Tahoe to Texas to Connecticut. So if any of those ring a bell, come say hi. But yeah, I started off my career in a rotational program for supply chain. And then one of the rotations happened to be in supply chain analytics, fell in love with data and getting set up there. And yeah, and then I came over to LiveRamp to help work on customer health. So yeah, super excited to be here and walk you guys through our take on customer health and how we leverage DBT to implement it.
So really before I get started, and a question that ever since I started working at LiveRamp, I get like, what exactly does LiveRamp do? And for the first 7, 8, 9 months, whatever it is, you don't really know. You just have the marketing speak of how you get it. But after being there for a while, kind of get to figure it out. But LiveRamp helps brands efficiently use their first-party data to deliver and optimize personalized advertising at scale. It's a very complicated, complex process with all the different customers, vendors, and people that we have. And personalized advertising drives higher customer satisfaction and really just leading to more sales. And again, LiveRamp takes this really complex process from what do I do with my first-party data? How do I make sure that I'm able to reach my customers where they are and be able to drive sales through that? We help with that entire story and then help bring companies together in a data collaboration platform so everyone could safely and securely share their data with each other. So what is customer health? And I think everyone probably has their version of customer health, customer experience, whatever it may be, right? Everyone kind of has their term for what it is. And why is it so, it's very complicated at LiveRamp because our teams, as I was mentioning, the complexity of LiveRamp and our customers, we support many different types, right? From brands to agencies to data providers. And these diverse set of customers make it difficult to quickly look at any account and be like, what is going on? And the old way of doing this, if you onboard a new customer service manager, you onboard them, or they maybe get a new book of business, they get a new account, whatever it may be, they would have to go into Salesforce, go into Workday, read notes, get a picture, just to get just a brief glimpse of what is going on. How is my customer doing? How happy are they? How satisfied? What have they been trending like over time? Like they'd have to go really dive in, interview, and it could take a couple days before they actually got the story. And then if they wanted to keep that story up to date, they'd obviously have to keep updating their notes. And so our process is just bringing all this data in one place so that we can serve up the Salesforce data, the Workday data, the Gainsight data, our product data in one place so that you can just quickly get an idea of what is my customer experience, how happy are they, how satisfied are they with the different products and experiences they've been sold. It just allows any user, any post-sales user mainly, to just get a quick glance at an account and understand, all right, what is their satisfaction and how are they doing?
Yeah, and just for some context on how it's calculated, the way we approach customer health at our company is we bring in data from 5 main categories. So we've got implementation, we've got product usage, we've got accounting, we've got support, and relationship. And the relationship you can think of like metrics like NPS or CSAT, where we send out surveys to the customer and we get some feedback on how we're doing. So we take those inputs and then we did a historical analysis looking at red deals that were created on those accounts to see which of these metrics had poor performances leading up to the creation of a red deal. And a red deal is a way for a commercial agent or a CSM to indicate to the rest of the business, hey, this deal is in trouble with this customer. We need help in order to solve it. And that might mean a product manager introduces a new feature. Engineering works on improving the product reliability or capacity of the product, or we have a change in the implementation process so that onboarding is simpler. But some sort of change has to happen in order for that deal to get saved. And then when we took a look at it, we saw that a couple of buckets of the metrics tended to appear much more often when a red deal was created, and they were performing poorly. So we labeled those metrics as high impact. Then there's a second category of metrics that showed up, but maybe not as often. They were labeled medium impact. And then the least likely to show up, we obviously labeled low impact. And then we fed them into this algorithm that we have that basically takes into account all of these metrics and says to the commercial agent or a CSM, hey, this is the performance on the account. It's healthy, neutral, or unhealthy. And you need to take some sort of action on it in order to bring it back to a healthy relationship with LiveRamp. And then the weighting of the metrics were all determined by how often they showed up on a red deal. So yeah, hopefully that gives you a little bit of context on what LiveRamp is and what customer health means for our company. I think today what we wanted to go over is what the kind of problems we were facing as a data team with customer health. And I think specifically where we were facing a lot of challenges is getting our architecture into a place where we could reliably go in and troubleshoot if something went wrong, preventing from things going wrong in the first place so our data accuracy was high, and then finding a sustainable way to do that while also building new data products for our consumers so they could start taking action instead of just reading dashboards. And the way we approached it was obviously implementing dbt helped us break up this monolithic SQL code base that we had into much more manageable chunks. And those chunks let us set up testing in a way that, again, just made the entire pipeline much more robust. And we're going to walk through why that led to, how that led to us creating real-time alerting and why that was a better data product for our consumers and they were able to start taking action and what kind of outcomes that drove. All right, so what exactly was going on with customer health and why did we need a better data solution? So when we had taken over customer health, it was really this spaghetti pile of data pipelines, and I feel like a lot of people in this room might be familiar with something like that. You've got data that needs to be accurate, but it's also coming from, there's 22 metrics involved, so it's coming from all these different sources with all these different data stewards, all with their unique business processes and business logic. And the other funny thing at LiveRamp is things change so often, and there's oftentimes little to no governance that we can see these systems and these fields and these values and this logic changing, and we're not able to, as a data team, account for that. Like, we need a way to see those changes happening ahead of time, flag us so we can go and come up with a solution. And obviously what this all meant was unless the analyst was an expert on each of these domains, it became very, very tricky to actually troubleshoot it effectively because you had to go reach out to that domain expert, get all of the context, and the lead time for troubleshooting just was through the roof. And our stakeholders oftentimes didn't feel like we were on top of the issues, and they didn't have the trust that we needed for us to build the better products we were looking to do. So here's an example of our old lineage graph in GCP, and this is even better than what we had, but the whole process was really opaque. Like, we would sit down to start to troubleshoot, and it would just be probably 100+ lines of SQL code in one place. And each of those, there were blocks in those SQL code that had dependencies to this other materialized view that had, and if you looked at that materialized view, that would have dependencies downstream as well. And there was not a clean way for us to see exactly what was happening. And on top of that, you can imagine trying to update a monolithic SQL code base like that was very tricky because if you made one little tweak, the rest of it could fall apart, and it wasn't clear where the line ended or started. And we had a Tableau report for our CSMs and our end users that was kind of doing the job for more or less, but any improvement that we wanted to make, the lead time to make those changes was so high, our stakeholders weren't happy with us. So what would this look like exactly? What this would look like is me walking in at 8 a.m. to a Slack message from a manager, which no one wants to see, and next thing you know, I'm having to, and the only information that oftentimes you would get is, hey, this account health status might be wrong, but you don't know what's causing that. It could be that the health, that they disagree with the algorithm calculating the logic. It could be there's an issue with the implementation source database. It could be that support went through a change in the way they do business, so that you have to account for that logic change. Maybe the product usage data the way we're calculating product usage data is incorrect. It could be a whole list of things. And before we even got to that level of detail, the root cause analysis often got stuck at us just trying to map out exactly where these dependencies existed. And many of the data assets that we were relying on had maybe 100 plus lines, and they were like anywhere from 5 to 10 layers deep. And so trying to understand exactly what was happening was very difficult. The process was opaque, and we knew we needed to do something better. So, and what was our approach? Well, obviously we wanted to make it accurate, but how exactly does DBT help you get there? Well, the introduction of the DAG, I think, really was a light bulb moment for us, because we could see exactly where all the dependencies were, both upstream and downstream of a particular data set. We also this enabled us to break up these long chunks of SQL code into more modular chunks, so that we could set up singular testing, we could set up generic testing, and we knew that each piece of logic worked exactly as expected. And this allowed us, obviously, to make changes to the database in a much more reliable way. We knew everything that we had worked. At the same time, we didn't forget about the process. And I think this is a step that we had to learn kind of the hard way. It wasn't just getting these tests set up that was going to make us successful. We also needed a way to govern the metrics and make sure people weren't changing things willy-nilly upstream of us. And we sat down with all of our key stakeholders, from executives in engineering to implementation, and we said, hey, this is the definition that we have. This is how it feeds a lot of our customer health data pipelines, and this is how CSMs are using this data. If you make a change, we need to be notified. And I think what happens over time that we don't fully appreciate is there's this sort of drift that happens from when the system initially gets set up to where you are today. And that drift can be because a new manager comes in and they want to make a change. Maybe there's a field that's not working in a source system the way we want it to, so someone in Salesforce creates a new field. Whatever the case may be, you want to make sure you're keeping up to date on those changes, and we came up with a way for us to stay on top of that. That really helped, I think, everyone get in line, and that made a big difference in our data accuracy. I think all this led to our stakeholders just realizing that, look, we may not be perfect as a data team. We're going to make mistakes like anyone else, but because of the alerting we've set up, because of the upfront work we've done, they know that we're going to catch these issues and that ultimately we'll be able to solve them a lot quicker. So yeah, and then this all led to the product that we ended up creating, which is the alerting system we have that Kyle's going to walk through.
Yeah, so we now have the accuracy in place, and we have what we need to kind of set up alerts, right? Because if the data isn't accurate, they get an alert, and it doesn't matter as many times as that happens. It's like no one's going to use it. Even just one or two bad alerts, and they say, oh, it doesn't work, it's not working. They're not going to use it. So now that we got DBT to help us organize our lineage and figure out what is actually happening in this end final model that we have, and we know it's accurate, these metrics can now feed what we call our early warning system, or EWS, into Gainsight. And this is all going into Gainsight. So all this model and all these metrics, we can now push each one of these individual metrics to Gainsight to create alerting. And this is how CSMs interact with the metrics, right? They don't need a NoSQL. They don't need to go into the data. We're not giving them a giant, Excel sheet or whatever it may be. We're just giving them an alert in a system that they regularly do all their tasks in something that they call them CTAs, and there's different CTAs or call to actions that they're used to doing. We just introduced a new flavor called early warning system. So they're able to see the alert in Gainsight and go through a list of steps to like take action on whatever that alert has said. And you know, speaking on this, we had an awesome and still have an awesome customer support partner who's able to help us create these playbooks. Where if we didn't have them, like I think as a data team, we would fall on our face trying to create these playbooks because we don't know what a CSM should do. Having that partner create this and help us make like alerting actionable is really the key in what we, you know, what's been super helpful. But yeah, these playbooks just help the CSM dive into what is the metric, what is going on, and how do I go further. And as an example of that, so this is kind of what the CSM would see in the Gainsight, the cockpit that we call it, and we're just filtering this out to just the CTA, EWS, and specifically the contract utilization metric. And the contract utilization for us is just like utilization of your product, right? We have a specific set of products. How well is the customer utilizing that? Obviously, going through and just agreeing, you know, first step agreeing on what is contract utilization, that is a nightmare in and of itself. But once you have that and all the work that Shiva did to get to there, we now can serve up this alert with a playbook. And then inside this playbook, you can see in the lower left here, you have the list of tasks that need to be completed to call this alert and this complete, like so that the CSM and know that CSM is actually taking action. And then inside of each of these tasks is a list of things that you need to do. And then inside of there is where we can put our UI, like, hey, by the way, you're gonna have to really understand when did this contract utilization go bad? Well, if they don't have a way to understand at what point in time, like we don't want them going and asking and bothering people in accounting, bothering people in product, and like, no, let's just make that. This is where when they come to us and the CS partner says, hey, we need a dashboard. All right, yes, we could build a dashboard. We don't build the dashboard first. We don't build the solution, or we don't build the visual UI before we like start solving the problem. And then when it's like, yes, we need a dashboard, that's when we can start building it. So this is like a clear example of where now we can monitor something that we built and how many usage in a place for them to just click into it. You don't have to remember the Tableau link I sent you 6 months ago. You don't have to know how to search Tableau, which if your environment in Tableau, if you have that as anything like ours, it's everyone's allowed to build everything and kind of just ends up being, all right, what do I go to? And sometimes things naming the same thing. Well, you serve it up inside of alerts, they can just go right to it. So this just makes it so that the CSMs can interact with our metrics that we created and governed in a way that they know and have done for their entire time at LiveRamp. So we got the problem solved, right? So we have this trusting alerting set up for CSMs. We know the metrics that feed these alerts to Gainsight, to our CSM teams. And again, inside those CSM, or inside those alerts, are these playbooks that direct them exactly what to do and exactly how to take action and steps to improve this relationship with our customer with the alert that you received. And then we also were able to create with this, which is a one UI to just go get this information too. Because yeah, the alerts are nice and getting the drill downs and seeing it, but maybe you have a QBR coming up, or maybe you have a business review, or maybe you and your manager just want to sit down and see how are your accounts doing. We gave them a UI that allows them to just sit down and see, here's how your accounts are doing. And if they want to drill into each account with their manager or with maybe a sales partner, they're able to do that. They have that one place. And they're able to answer questions like, how did implementation go? Are they interacting with the products that we sold them? And I know that's a crazy statement for a lot, but at LiveRamp, we have the ecosystem and the space that we try to cover is so broad. Sometimes we don't know if they're actually using a product that they sold. Like that was actually something that we had to solve. So having that in this one space, being able to answer that is really, really awesome for the CSMs. And then they can also answer, like we were talking about, or Shiva was talking about, like NPS and CSAT scores. How are they survey scores? Like those are actually sometimes coming from two different systems. And before they'd have to go to the two separate systems. Now they have it in one place. And then how many tickets are they submitting? Are they tech support tickets? Are they billing tickets? How long are they taking to resolve? That's all in one place that they can go ahead and see, before any kind of upcoming review with the business, with their manager, with their team, to just understand how it's going that they couldn't get before. That they'd probably be using a giant Google sheet with all their docs and not connecting, updated. They have to manage just a manual process that they no longer have to update. Or they could just utilize this for their manual process if they want to and make their lives a lot easier.
Yeah, and so what did we learn? Well, I think the first lesson might be obvious to I think a lot of people, but data accuracy is key to building the trust. And maybe one thing that's not so obvious is that people aren't going to come right out and say that's the issue, right? You'll try to work with them and you'll try to make progress, and things will, maybe they're not going to be progressing as you would like. And the real underlying reason is that they just don't see that you can keep up with the demands that they have, and or they find issues and they see you as someone that's not able to find these issues ahead of time. But the reality is you may not have the infrastructure in place or the right architecture in place to actually meet those higher demands. So you need to have a tool like dbt that'll help you set that up. And once you have dbt, you can modularize the chunks, you can put into place these software engineering best practices for your data product, and you'll achieve a lot better outcomes. And I think the last kind of lesson that Kyle was touching on is that these alerting systems are going to be much more effective than a dashboarding system. But obviously they require more accuracy. However, you're creating a data product that's much more proactive than a dashboard. It doesn't rely on a CSM or a commercial agent looking at something, hopefully 3 months before renewal or 6 months before renewal. This is something that sits in their inbox that the manager is expecting them to take a look at. And then working with someone in the business side who has a good sense of what these steps should be is critical too, because I don't think without that person we would have been able to be as effective as we were. But imagine they go in, they find this alert, they say, okay, step 1 is reach out to the customer, step 2 is give them this set of information that is corresponding with the lack of product usage we're seeing, and so on and so forth. It just brings the entire data to life, and you're able to get value out of it. And so ultimately what this led to in terms of business outcomes is that we saw an increase in red deals, which I think might sound a little bit funny, like why is that a good thing? Well, these issues were happening whether we were surfacing them or not. It's just that the CSM, as you can imagine, wasn't set up or equipped to be able to sort through all of this data like we are and find these issues at a moment's notice. And they oftentimes might have anywhere up to 50 accounts. They don't have the capacity to check all these accounts for all these details. And because they have this new set of information, they found issues much quicker than they would have previously. And this enabled product to have a lot more time to build the features that they want to build. This enabled engineering to understand they needed to get their product reliability up to a certain standard. And this allowed implementation to say, hey, we need to make these improvements to our onboarding process or our customers aren't going to be set up for success. And yeah, I think Kyle's going to walk us through what we're planning to do next and where we're going to go.
Yeah, so what's next for us and dbt? So, and specifically like with customer health, I'll start there, is we really need to do a customer segmentation analysis, and Shiva's actually already leading this right now. So I talked about earlier how complex our LiveRamp customer base is and how different they are. We did create a one-score-fits-all, and our biggest complaint from our CSMs is one score does not fit all. Like, I can't use this is unusable. So, and we kind of knew that going in. We knew we just needed to start somewhere and use kind of some of the logic that we had before we did this. So, our next step is figure out what are our cohorts of customers to assign a better health score, because maybe each customer doesn't need all 22 metrics. Maybe they just need 4. Maybe they just need 3. Maybe we need to add one more. And having that customer segmentation analysis and understanding how our customers interact with LiveRamp all differently and what are the things each one of those groups cares about the most is where we're going to go to next to give more accuracy and then hopefully reduce alerting so that they're not getting flooded with alerts, leading to basically every time you get an alert, it's, oh my God, I got to do something. So that's kind of our next step with customer health. And then kind of as a whole here, one of our next steps is integrating Atlan, our new data catalog that we just onboarded, which when we created this presentation, we actually weren't even sure what we were going to do first. We actually already got customer health all integrated with Atlan. So like the data governance process that we talk about, like doesn't happen without having all this documentation, and it's like where to document it, right? Where to put it? Where is it? Is it on your intranet? Is it on here? So Atlan is really helping us unlock that to be able to assign a business owner, assign a technical data owner, assign what does verified actually mean. And then getting on that agreement, because again, you're able to assign a business owner and a technical owner. They come to an agreement on what exactly is this definition. Like, if we said contract utilization before, there could have been 17 different definitions throughout our thing, and we get them together. And yes, this was very, very painful for this specific one because that involves like 6 teams agreeing on one metric. But now we have it, and it's like, if you want something different, we're calling it something different. It's not contract utilization, it's contract utilization for X, Y, and Z. So that's something that we're super excited about, to basically start using Atlan to assist setting up and do more governance throughout our other projects, throughout everything, because customer health is really kind of the first one we've attacked with this and going about. So setting it up across our, our DBT and GCP environment is going to be really key. And then the last thing, which I think if you guys have been here for the 4 days, it's creating a semantic layer. I think we're at the point where we're really thinking about all these as metrics, and we have the ability to, like, we have the kind of understanding of what a semantic layer is and how and what a metric is and why it's so important. We just now need to get a plan of how to get all these metrics we just talked about into that system, so that instead of pulling, right now we have this one like gold standard table with all the dimensions, all the metrics in one thing, which is feeding all these alerts, feeding our dashboards. It's like, okay, well, how do we kind of break that up and create these metrics across so that they could start using these metrics to really integrate well and really connect with, like, hey, I want to see this metric in revenue, and you could just make that answer happen. And I think once we get that established, and really I think the main thing is just establishing a process, for our GCP architecture to really unlock this. And in data transformation as well, like, we follow rules with data transformation, but we break rules a lot. And I'm sure a lot of teams do too, but it's like, for this to work, I think the main thing is having a plan, sticking to it, and being strict about it to make this gold standard of the semantic layer. And I think, like, my goal in my future, what I'd love to see is like analysis analysts never have to do not complicated analysis, but like the basic analysis. They're always just going to the semantic layer. They're not creating something from a source, from like 3 source tables to create this analysis. They're just doing it right from there, which I don't think we're too far off of, but that is what it'd be, so that an analyst is using the same semantic layer that a business user is using, that they use to pull a pivot table from Excel. Like, they're just using the exact same data source, so we don't have this, hey, why is your number different than my number? It's just all the same. So that's where obviously we'd love to be, and I think we could be there in a year, and who knows, maybe next year we're talking about how we set that up, but there's a lot of planning and a lot of time before that happens. So, but I just want to thank you guys for taking the time this afternoon, sticking around for the last day of Coalesce, and joining us today. If you guys have any questions, let us know, and please connect with us on LinkedIn or shoot us an email. Happy to talk and continue the conversation. Thank you guys so much.
I think we should have a mic, I think. Yeah, if you want to just yell out your question, that's fine.
Question. Have you thought about integrating with the CRM? Because that's sometimes CRM's
Yeah.
360 view of the customer.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
we've toyed around so we have Salesforce for our CRM, and we have looked at a couple of demos that the Salesforce team and some other members have put together on what Customer 360 looks like in Salesforce. And I think most people can relate to this. Frankly, the problem is that our Salesforce is not set up in a way that is, it's not set up properly. And so the insights that we're getting are often confounding, and there's so much kind of junk that's been created over time, and it's no one's fault. It's just over time, there's random fields that get created that aren't necessarily meaningful, that the product, we're not able to get meaningful insights out of it. And so that's why we have to bring it into our data warehouse through Fivetran and set up these insights.
So we do surface it there. So we actually surface our dashboard in there. Inside of Salesforce, it's integrated in there, and it basically, if you go to a specific customer, it's surfaced in Salesforce. So we do have that integration, and we do have that integration too with Gainsight too. So it is feeding those UIs with our data.
Yeah, and we do send it back, but that's because when we take data out and then we transform it and we add product usage and other ancillary data points that aren't in Salesforce into the system, and then we say, here's the signal that you need to care about. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I saw your hand first, yeah.
Have you been able to close the loop on the kind of alerting system you built in terms of like evaluating, monitoring, and iterating on the alerts? Because I imagine like business requirements change. Users want different things. Like one user wants this kind of alert, one user wants that kind of alert.
Yeah.
So kind of like, what's your approach to evaluating?
Yeah, so I think The main thing, as far as with the alerting, it's getting the customer segmentation set up, because our customers, we set, like, we have, like, 20 alerts or whatever it is, 20 alerts sending to every single type of customer. That's not what they want, right? So we need to dial in that alert to maybe it's 7 alerts for customer group A, right? And so it's getting those alerts set up in that way, which we're gonna get better. Because right now, when we were told, like, hey, what alerting do we need? They're like, hey, alert more rather than miss an alert. So, like, the CSMs don't like that, right? It's way too many, and it's way too many right now. But with the customer segmentation, we could then say, all right, customer A, it only needs these 4 alerts. And if they have that, if they miss one of the others, it's not dire to that customer type. So that's how I think we're going forward. I don't know, Shiv, if you have anything else on that.
Yeah, no, I think that hit the nail on the head. And maybe a couple additional details is that we do have a system for them to provide feedback. We call it LiveRamp, but basically they open a ticket and we make it available on the dashboard. And I think some of the EWS alerts have it, but they go into LiveRamp, they say, hey, we don't like this, or we like this, or whatever their feedback may be, and then we aggregate it into our system, and we say, the idea is for us to look at it quarterly and say, okay, we're finding a lot of complaints about XYZ trigger, we need to fix this. So that's another approach that we're going to be taking down the line. It hasn't been fully implemented yet.
Yeah, and we do scream at the CS, like, tell us when something's wrong. Like, I think that's the biggest thing. Like, they're scared to tell us it's wrong. No, tell us it is so we can fix it and show you how fast we can fix it now. Because in the past we couldn't, now we can. It's like, tell us it's wrong, and it's like, that's one of the big things we're actually monitoring, is like, how many bugs do we get from CSMs on this stuff? And, like, is it actually wrong, or did someone outside of what DBT is covering, like someone in Salesforce, make a logic change that we just don't have the visibility into at this time? Like, did that happen? So it's like, can we explain it, or no, we made a mistake, yes, and start tracking those. So yeah.
So I guess you're aggregating data from different systems, right? You have product usage, maybe some from CRM. I was wondering if you had a problem with entity resolution. Like, you have a customer object on your platform and a customer object on the CRM, and how do you...
Our account hierarchy in LiveRamp is a fun topic.
Yeah.
Getting agreement on that is basic. And what we did with this, we just said, with customer health, we're starting at the parent. Everyone has this parent company, but, like, let's take, for example, Disney, right? Disney at the parent level, that's how we're, like, displaying this. But Disney at, like, the account level, like when you go to the child level, we have Hulu, we have Disney Parks, we have in-store Disney, whatever, all the different things that Disney has. We basically made the decision to make sure that that doesn't get too confusing. Like, we're just gonna aggregate everything up at the parent level. And that's one thing, we call it agrees across everywhere. Whereas, like, the product level and the, like, parent level in Salesforce sometimes don't talk. But the parent level talks with everything across all the systems. And even then, there's a lot of, another one of our colleagues, they work on the mapping of all our customers, and we have alerting set up for when system A and B don't match, but B and C do. How do we resolve it? So we actually do have that now, and that's something we're really getting into. And we're trying to get into our data catalog and get kind of one agreement on everything. Because, yeah, between our accounting systems, Salesforce systems, product systems, we'll have different IDs, obviously, but do we have mappings to all those? And we're getting closer.
So that's at the enterprise level. But you have also the same problem at the contact or individual level, because that's the person connecting with his email. And are you getting the product usage, for example, signal from the person?
Yeah. Yeah, so most of the time, like with the product team, they're all, like, they log in, a user logging into our system, they'll log into our system, and when they log in, it's identified to, like, a product level ID for every user that uses that product in there. So, like, there's, like, a group, there's maybe a group of 6 on, like, a marketing team that uses our system. They're all coming under the same metrics in the product level, which that product level can be mapped to, the accounting level and to the Salesforce level.
Yeah, I think also we're over time, but if you guys just want to come up to us after, but yeah.
Yeah. So, thanks everybody.
Thank you.
Have a good one.